All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going deep, really deep into this fascinating world of neuroaffective somatics.
Hmm.
It's a framework developed by Catherine Zitterbart,
Right.
and we're going to be using her book as our guide,
Okay.
Intro to Neuroaffective Somatics. And so think of this deep dive as like a shortcut
Okay.
to grasping this really unique approach
Yeah.
that combines a lot of different things.
Right.
It combines Chinese medicine, cognitive neuroscience, and this really deep understanding of how our bodies process experience,
Especially trauma.
especially trauma.
Yeah.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to really extract the core insights and present them to you in a way that sparks your curiosity and maybe even gives you some new perspectives on well-being.
I think what's so cool about neuroaffective somatics is that it's not just like an abstract theory,
Right.
It's really rooted in experience.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in this appreciation for how everything's connected.
Absolutely. And, the person behind it all, Catherine Zitterbart, she has such a unique background.
Yeah.
She's a Neiden practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into what that means in a bit.
Right.
She's also a media theorist, and she's really engaged with embodied cognition.
Right.
So, even from a young age, she's had this awareness of patterns, whether it's in music or thought.
Yeah.
By the time she was a teenager, she was already deep into Taoism and theoretical physics.
Wow.
And then, on top of all of that, she has over 35 years of experience working with the body and the breath.
So you can kind of see how those different like threads start to come together.
Yeah.
And, that early sensitivity to patterns.
Yeah.
The physics and the theoretical
Yeah.
kind of lay the groundwork.
Yeah. And here's where it gets even more interesting. So, her developing this framework wasn't just some intellectual pursuit.
Right.
So in 2019, she actually she had a life-threatening stroke.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, during the pandemic, she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer
Oh, wow.
and had to undergo treatment in complete isolation.
Oh, my gosh.
So this really intense journey that she went through of
Yeah.
essentially rebuilding her own nervous system
Mm-hmm.
became like the catalyst for these ideas.
Yeah, it's often through these periods of like real adversity that you see new approaches emerge.
Right.
Because the old models don't
Yeah.
really serve you anymore.
They don't cut it.
Yeah.
And so out of this experience, she developed this core philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
which she summarizes as disrupt supremacy at the machine language level.
That's quite a phrase.
And the framework itself is called Zitterbart-Escherbach.
Okay.
And it's really a nod to those intricate systems, that kind of refer back to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what's key here is that it's not, hierarchical. It's not about control. It's built on this idea of loops and tensegrity.
I've heard of that. And it's like that, what is it? Like a bridge.
It is.
Like a suspension bridge.
Okay.
Where it's tension and compression
Exactly.
working together
That's exactly right.
to hold it up.
So she uses that as an analogy for how this all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then, of course, it's grounded in this lived experience. So
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
model of resonance
That's a really important part.
instead of dominance.
We should get into that more.
Yeah, definitely. We'll
Yeah.
unpack that.
What does that actually mean?
What does that mean,
Yeah.
right? Now, she also encourages you, the listener, to come to this deep dive with curiosity and just a willingness to be thoughtful.
Yeah. Be open.
Be open, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She also has a ton of information in her work
Right.
about the science behind all of this
Mm.
and, methodologies that you can use and even exercises.
Oh, cool.
So, and she's included these QR codes
Yeah, tell us.
that will give you access to even more resources.
Right.
So there's no paywalls or anything like that.
That's great.
So she really wants to make this knowledge accessible
Yeah.
to everyone.
And that really shows like a commitment
Mm-hmm.
to getting this out there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, she also has this really interesting take on large language models, like AI.
Yeah.
And with her background in media theory and, understanding logic, she's actually used these tools to ensure accuracy.
Oh, interesting.
When she maps, all these concepts from different fields like physics and linguistics and traditional Chinese medicine. She's even got these detailed tables.
Oh, wow.
But, she's super clear that this framework is her
Yes.
own original work.
Right, right.
Grounded in her experience and her study of non-duality.
So it's like a pragmatic use of the technology,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really supporting something
Yeah.
very human.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this kind of brings us to the core principle
Ah.
of neuroaffective somatics,
Yeah.
and that is you are already inside the system. I like that.
Right. This isn't something you have to create
Right.
or prove,
Yeah.
your body, your breath, that sensation of awareness
Mm-hmm.
in space, that's it.
Right.
That's the system.
Already there.
It's already there.
Yeah.
This deep dive, and, Zitterbart's work in general,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about imposing some new structure or
Right.
trying to force change.
Yeah.
It's really about becoming more aware
Okay.
of what's already there.
What's underneath?
Yeah, beneath the surface, within yourself,
Yeah.
but also within, the wider culture, the world.
The cosmos, even.
The cosmos, yeah. So it's a framework of resonance, not force.
We were talking about that before.
Right.
Resonance
Right.
versus control.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge shift
It is.
in how we think about things.
It's not about trying to fix things.
Right.
It's about paying attention.
Paying attention.
Right. So, okay, let's dive a little deeper now into the
Yeah.
core
Of neuroaffective somatics. So one of the first kind of shifts in perspective
Right.
that it offers is how we understand healing.
Okay.
And this is especially true in relation to trauma.
Right.
So instead of thinking of trauma as damage
Yeah, that needs to be repaired.
that needs to be repaired,
Right, the classic model.
it's reframed as a process of repatterning.
Okay.
This repatterning, which is guided by, the wisdom of Chinese medicine, and it also aligns with insights from cognitive and affective neuroscience.
Which is, for folks who might not know, it's the study of how our thoughts and emotions are processed.
Yeah, how they work in the brain and the body.
In the brain and the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this can actually lead to a new configuration of self,
Hmm.
one that is characterized by more coherence and resonance.
Okay, so it's not about going back to normal.
It's not about going back.
It's about moving forward
It's about moving forward in a new way.
in a new way with this new coherence.
With this new coherence.
Yeah.
And, a key part of this is that this kind of fluidity, this repatterning,
Right.
challenges these really rigid
Like the diagnostic category.
diagnostic categories, yeah, and encourages us to be more nuanced.
Yeah, have a more nuanced
of
understanding
these internal states
of our inner world.
of our inner world, yeah.
Yeah.
And, this isn't something that Zitterbar just kind of came up with on her own, right?
Right.
Neuroaffective somatics draws on this ancient wisdom,
Correct.
specifically Taoist inner alchemy, or Nidan. And, Nidan predates acupuncture by thousands of years.
Wow, so this is really old.
It is. And she uses these ancient maps, not just as like historical artifacts,
Right.
but as living frameworks.
I like that living framework.
Right.
So,
So they offer these pathways
Oh,
for reorganizing our nervous systems, our bodies, and even our relationship to things like time,
lineage.
lineage, yeah, and space.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like taking these understandings that have been developed over such a long time
Yeah.
and applying them
Yeah.
to today.
To today,
Yeah.
exactly. And you, the listener, you're at the center of this.
Okay.
So the Tai Chi symbol,
The yin-yang symbol.
the yin-yang symbol, yeah,
Yeah.
that represents you.
Mm.
You are the point of balance,
Yeah.
the fulcrum between your inherited patterns, which is called Jing,
Okay.
and your reach towards the cosmos,
Mm-hmm.
which is called Shen, or spirit.
Okay, so we have this Jing and this Shen,
Yeah.
and we're right in the middle.
And you're right in the middle.
Yeah.
And you're not just a passive recipient.
Right.
You're actively participating
Yeah.
in your own transformation.
That's a good point
Yeah,
because it's not something being done to you.
right.
You're a part of it.
Yeah, you're part of the process.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about yin and yang, it's easy to think of them as these, opposing forces kind of locked in this conflict, right?
Right.
But in neuroaffective somatics
Mhm.
and in, Taoist principles,
Yeah.
they're really qualities, not quantities.
Okay.
So their meaning depends entirely on context.
That's interesting.
So, for instance, think about temperature,
Okay.
right? So 65 degrees Fahrenheit
Mm-hmm.
might feel really yin or cool and passive
Right.
during a hot New England summer.
Yeah, for sure.
But that same temperature,
Keys 5.
65 degrees, would feel very yang,
Yeah.
warm and active.
At the South Pole.
At the South Pole, yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's no absolute threshold where yin suddenly becomes yang.
Right.
It's all
It's still
relative.
all about context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at the yin yang symbol,
Right.
there's a black dot in the white and a white dot in the black.
Yeah, that's right.
And that shows us that nothing is ever purely one or the other.
It's always in motion.
It's always in motion. There's this interplay.
Yeah, like a wave.
Like a wave,
It's kind of going back and forth.
Yeah.
And this kind of also, it reminds me that it also challenges those categories.
It does. The rigid category.
Yeah, and helps us to have a more nuanced understanding
You're right.
of ourselves.
Of ourselves and our experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So building on this understanding of yin and yang, we have Shen,
right.
which is this intelligence that allows for something beyond just regulation.
Okay.
It allows for resonance. Yeah. And so while yin and yang represent polarity, Shen is about coherence.
Okay, so it's like bringing things together.
It is.
Into this like
harmony.
Into alignment. Yeah. With this this web of relationships that are described by the meridians in Chinese medicine.
Right.
So regulation often stops at the level of qi.
Right.
It focuses on managing nervous system states.
And controlling energy.
Controlling energy.
Right. But resonance goes deeper.
It goes to Shen.
It goes into Shen.
Okay.
And it recognizes that true well-being isn't about force.
Right.
It's not about control.
It's about finding that harmony.
It's about harmony. It's about alignment.
Yeah, so it's not just about managing symptoms or like getting to some baseline.
Right.
It's something more.
It's about connecting to this this deeper wisdom that's within our bodies.
Like the intelligence of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, when Shen is fully expressed, the body doesn't just go back to neutral.
Right.
It actually refines its capacity for perception.
Oh, interesting.
For attuning to others on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And for experiencing richer relationships.
Oh, wow.
So this is a big reason why in traditional Chinese medicine, the nervous system and consciousness, they're not separate. They're part of the same process.
This is really like one of the key differences between like Eastern and Western medicine.
Right.
Is this understanding that mind and body are connected.
Yeah, it's not this dualistic view.
Yeah.
And in neuroaffective somatics, the Soma, which is our lived, felt experience of our body, that's the portal.
The portal, okay.
It's a portal, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a Soma-centered model.
Okay.
And it pulls together insights from neuroscience, affective science, so that's the study of emotions, Chinese medicine, and somatic intelligence to support nervous system health, but also emotional resilience and embodied awareness.
So it's not just about, like, calming the nervous system.
It's not just about that.
It's about these other things, too.
It's about all of that.
Yeah.
So healing doesn't happen by trying to directly manage our mental states.
Okay.
It happens through the Soma.
Through the Soma.
It impacts our sense of self, our spirit, our connection to the world.
And that's something that comes up in a lot of different somatic approaches.
It does.
This idea of the body as the portal.
The portal, yeah.
To healing.
And so at its core, this framework really challenges these dominance-based approaches to well-being.
Okay.
So instead of trying to, force our nervous system into this rigidly defined state of regulation.
Like the goal is just to regulate.
Right, that's the end goal.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes this this deepening of our attunement to the Soma.
So paying attention.
Paying attention to the Soma.
Yeah.
And recognizing that our physiological states, they're not random.
Right.
They're meaningful responses.
The forces in the world.
Different forces, yeah.
Gravity or environment.
Yes, gravity, environment, social forces, all of that.
So it kind of pulls us out of this internalized, individualistic view of health.
Exactly.
But it's more relational.
Yeah.
More ecological.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Zitterbart really stresses that neuroaffective somatics is not just a repackaging of other somatic models.
Right.
It's a response to what she sees as limitations in things like polyvagal theory. And its alignment with things like the DSM.
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she also talks about this important issue of cultural appropriation that can happen in Western somatic spaces.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And she moves beyond what she sees as the rigidity of dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. Now, while she does come from, movement traditions like the Krishnamacharya and Ghosh lineages of yoga, her primary influences are traditional Chinese medicine and Neiden.
Okay, so she's really trying to get us to move beyond these binaries.
The binaries.
Of like, am I doing this right or wrong?
Exactly. And so, let's look at this idea of resonance over regulation from a cultural perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Zitterbart points out that these regulation-focused models, like polyvagal theory, often act like they apply to everyone.
Universally, yeah.
But she asks us a really important question. Whose nervous system are they actually describing?
Right.
And, she says that this idea of a regulated body is often based on cultural standards.
That are very specific.
Very specific.
To a certain group.
Yeah. To like a white, male, Western...
neurotypical, able-bodied perspective.
Yeah. That's something we should really think about.
Yeah.
Because what's considered regulated can be different in different cultures. And even for individuals.
Yeah. So if you have a narrow view of regulation, you could end up misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Or even pathologizing people.
Yeah. So in polyvagal theory, a regulated nervous system often looks like a calm expression. An even tone of voice.
Yeah.
A steady breath.
Heart
rate.
Comfortable with eye contact?
Eye contact, yeah. A balance between assertiveness and receptivity in social interactions. And Zitterbert's point is these are not universal markers.
They're culturally shaped.
They are. They're shaped by race, gender, neurodivergence, and all these cultural norms.
Think about how different cultures express emotions.
Yeah.
Or how they handle conflict. Or how they engage with other people.
Absolutely.
What might look like engagement in one culture could be seen very differently.
Could be seen as something else.
In another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see this play out in a lot of ways, unfortunately. For example, Black individuals who might be experiencing, sensory overload or intense emotions might be labeled as schizophrenic. When a white person with similar experiences might be understood as autistic or having PTSD. And then women who have these fluctuations in mood or periods of withdrawal might be diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Oh, wow.
Instead of being assessed for complex trauma. And often their experiences are just overlooked.
Yeah, so we're not looking at the underlying causes.
We're not looking at the underlying causes.
Yeah.
And then we have Indigenous, Black, and Latinx children who are way more likely to be labeled with behavioral disorders than to have their experiences understood through the lens of trauma.
And neurodiversity.
Or neurodiversity.
Yeah.
And then you have neurodivergent individuals, and particularly autistic people, who might not demonstrate social engagement in the way that polyvagal theory describes as this ideal ventral vagal state. So then their nervous system states are misinterpreted.
So these examples are really important because they show us how bias can creep in when we use a really narrow definition of what's regulated. And especially when that definition is coming from a specific cultural perspective. And then we end up pathologizing. Normal responses.
Especially for marginalized folks.
Yeah.
And so this is where the shift to attunement and resonance is so important.
Yeah.
So Zitterbart contrasts this
dominance-based approach.
Which we see in the medical model with principles that we find in these ancient texts, like the Huangdi Neijing, also known as the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon, and the Tao Te Ching. So in these philosophies, ideal leadership, and by extension, healing, isn't about control or dominance.
It's about something else.
It's about attunement.
Okay. Yeah.
So the ideal leader is like the ideal healer.
Yeah.
It's someone who cultivates deep listening, who can perceive these subtle cues, and who guides others through their presence and understanding, not through force.
So it's a real shift.
It's a huge shift.
Yeah.
From regulating someone
Right.
to helping them find their own resonance.
So it's about moving away from trying to fix,
Yeah.
trying to control,
Yeah.
and really fostering this space
Yeah.
where natural healing can happen.
Yeah, where things can unfold.
Yeah, and where we can tap into that inner wisdom and the body's own intelligence.
Absolutely. And resonance in this deeper sense is not just about achieving some kind of balanced internal state in isolation.
It's bigger than that.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's about aligning with the Tao, that underlying principle
Of the universe.
of the universe.
Yeah.
It's about coherence with the world around us.
So it's not just about us as individuals.
It's not.
It's about our connection.
It's about connection.
To
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's allowing transformation to unfold rather than trying to force it.
Yeah, so it's a different way of being in the world.
It is. It is. And this brings us back to Neiden.
Right, that Taoist inner alchemy.
Taoist inner alchemy, yeah.
Right.
Which is really at the heart of neuroaffective somatics. So Neiden focuses on cultivating coherence, not control, refining perception, not imposing our will, and letting the intelligence of life reveal itself.
Instead of us thinking we know everything.
Right, instead of us thinking we know best.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So the body is seen as this landscape where we learn to attune
to this larger field.
To this larger field, yeah. And it shifts us from focusing on just individual survival to collective resonance.
So it expands our view.
It does.
Yeah, from just me to us.
Yeah, to the collective.
Yeah.
And, underlying all of this are the three core virtues of Taoism.
Okay. What are those?
So we have compassion, which is this this desire to lessen suffering. Then we have moderation, which is, restraint, avoiding extremes, recognizing that too much or too little of anything